Welcome to Idiots versus Idiots. I am Danny. I'm here along with the big man. We are two extremely, very large idiots, and we like to talk about
Should I be offended
business
with
and
the
marketing.
large or the idiots part of that? I'm not
What's
sure.
that?
Should I be offended at the large or the idiots part of that statement? Which
Dude, if you put your pant size into Amazon and the first thing that comes up is shower curtains, I don't think you're allowed to get offended when someone calls you big.
they're called kilts, Danny. Kilts. Go ahead.
And you just told me you had to Google the definition of balkanization and you have a bachelor's degree. So I don't think that there's no scenario in which, either of these things don't apply. We're a show, we talk about business and marketplace news. And I'm going to kick it off with the first one, which is Facebook. There's 48 attorneys general. Look at me saying it correctly.
Attorney generals. Yeah.
No, attorneys general.
No, attorney generals. The
Okay.
plural is on the second one.
Nope,
Go ahead, idiot.
I'm going to drown you. They want to reverse the now years old sales of Instagram and WhatsApp to Facebook. And I think that's interesting. And mostly what I'm interested in looking at is, this election has polarized the mainstream platforms, and you're seeing a mass exodus. At least a lot of my, quote unquote conservative friends, they're not getting banned off of Facebook. They're just leaving.
Well,
Right?
they're being accused, or they're accusing, and social media platforms, specifically Facebook and Twitter, right? Let's be honest.
Right.
These two really are being accused of being biased, specifically left-leaning biased, in this election. But here, look, let's kind of tackle this two ways. We'll talk about the cause, but let's talk about.
Can I just say this first, though?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think they have a bias. I think they have an agenda, and I think that's different. But I think,
Well, you can change an agenda pretty easily, right?
well, yeah. And here's the other thing, right? I think that, from my perspective anyway, my view is, if you break these companies up, what's going to happen is the belief is, from the government angle, like, we're going to break them up and we're going to reduce their power, but they're Hydra. Okay, you cut off one head, two more will appear. What's going to happen is these companies are going to get funded out of their mind. They're going to go on buying sprees, and what's going to happen is you're going to multiply their power, whereas the conglomeration of these companies, basically the conglomeration of Facebook, turns people off to the extent where, here's the thing, you can just stop using Facebook and Instagram. It's not the same thing as like, well, like, you're like, what happened when the US split up the Ma Bell into Baby Bells was, you're never getting rid of these companies.
Right. Well, but that was
AT&T.
You realize that was 1984.
Yeah.
Okay,
Before
you were
I
born
was
in
born.
what year, Danny?
What?
What year were you born in?
I was born towards the late 80s. I don't give
Okay,
a specific
so
date for security
the last
purposes.
time an antitrust lawsuit was
Right.
actually accomplished in the United States of America was 1984 in the what you're talking about into the Baby Bells, and that still has had long lasting ramifications where that didn't end up like what they wanted to happen, and look, and this is. And again, I'm an idiot in what I understand of antitrust law when it comes to what these are happenings. The problem is they cannot prove, because these are free platforms, right? These are not paid platforms. You can, as you said, switch to another social media platform. What's the new one you're on?
Parlor?
Yeah, Parlor, that all the right
It's
wing.
stupid dumb.
So,
dude.
but my
It
point
is a hell site.
They can't prove that. Okay, if Facebook didn't buy Instagram, it would have negatively impacted Facebook's consumers, right? Because they're not paying for the product, right? All of this is coming from a place of fear that, okay, Facebook that now owns Instagram, that now owns what's the other one?
WhatsApp, Oculus.
Right, all these things that right now they are still, for better or worse, even though they're all under the Facebook umbrella, they're all separate companies Facebook has put under their umbrella.
Well, not really, because they just unified Facebook messaging across all across Instagram, and they're going to fold in WhatsApp soon.
Yes,
So
and that's the fear is right now they're still integrating, but they haven't integrated all the data they're collecting, which is really
right,
what all this is about, right? All this is about
totally,
data. Social media platforms, TikTok, Facebook, every single one of these are about data, right? And that
right,
aggregation of that data. And what they're afraid of is Facebook as a umbrella company of all these little companies is going to eventually aggregate that data to the top,
right,
meaning all of it, right?
totally.
And then what does that then tell them? Because we already know Facebook all by itself
Yeah.
knows a lot, and WhatsApp all by itself knows a lot, and all these kind of things.
WhatsApp knows a little less. I mean, I remember those congressional or Senate hearings,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a senator or congressman, whoever it was, moron, um, was asking Mark Zuckerberg, who is absolutely a lizard person replaced by robots from another planet, who
He's a strange looking
like.
dude for sure.
Here's the thing, though. If you look at the start of when he started Facebook, I don't understand. The dude has a bajillion dollars. Like he can't hire an image coach or an image somebody to be like, "Hey man, get yourself a $500 haircut." It's like a normal person dropping a penny and not bothering to pick it up because they're too lazy. I don't
Normal people
understand his
don't
haircut.
create Facebook, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's true. But I'm just saying, what was it? I completely forgot my train of thought there. But the other point I was going to make was, do you remember this company called Netscape Navigator? They brought an antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft because Microsoft
Right.
was packaging an Internet Explorer. Nobody cares 20 years later,
No.
right? If you go ask one of your kids or mine, well, my nephew's too young, but any like any kid that like what is Internet Explorer? They don't know. They're
No.
like Safari, Chrome. These are the things that they know. And there's a handful of other browsers. I don't even use Safari or Chrome. Like I use a bunch of other kind of Chrome offshoots that have a privacy focus.
Mm-hmm.
But 50 years later, 30 years later, we're still dealing with the antitrust lawsuit of Ma Bell getting split up because
Mm-hmm.
Sprint got bought by T-Mobile and all this. They're all still out there, and people are still dealing with. You know, you have one or two competitors when it comes to ISPs where you live, and that is a direct long-term ramification of that one lawsuit 40 years ago before anybody knew what the internet even was or that it would
Well,
be a
sure.
thing
Most
that
people in the country still only have one ISP, by the way.
yeah yeah
Most
they only have
people
one
in our
option,
country, because most of our country's rural, right, has one provider.
right?
One provider. But I think more than likely what's going to happen than any antitrust lawsuit, which would last years, by the way, years and years and
Yeah.
years and years, that more likely than that, you have laws that are being created around access and ownership of your data, right? If
Which
instead they
yeah,
passed a law that says your data belongs to you and you
right.
have to, right? You have to
Which would
give
be a
someone access.
landmark.
It
It
would
would be
be,
a
but
land.
that's how you fix it,
Yeah,
right? That's how you fix it, right?
it
You
would
you
be a
can't.
landmark statement to say that individuals own their data because it starts to create a. And here's the reason why I don't think that will happen. Federal Trade and the U.S. There's another department, but they have a problem with encryption because when data is encrypted, they can't spy on you, and
Right.
they want to spy on you because you're not really a free person. You're just kind of living with their permission, so they want your data. And so the issue for me, I never had a problem with Google or Facebook having my data. It's that I know that they're giving it to the federal government, and if the federal government asks for literally anything of my data, I'm like, okay, here you go.
Well, I think any piece of legislation that passed on your data, because I think it has a greater chance than anything else, will
Right.
come with that loophole of the federal government, just like everything else does, right? Your
Yeah, and I know
phone, your
that
whatever.
right, and that was the thing that I was bringing up with that congressman or senator or whatever who's giving that who was asking Mark Zuckerman's. He's like, hey, if I text my friend over WhatsApp about Black Panther, why do I see Black Panther ads on Facebook? And he's like, well, it's encrypted, so we can't see the data. Like, we don't know what you sent your friend. And I think the congressman, senator, whoever it was, said the word email. And I was like, ugh,
Well, okay, look,
I
the
can't.
people that are asking these questions in these hearings for the government, when
Right.
Zuckerberg or anybody else in a technology base go to these, are idiots. They're old crony political idiots. And half the times the questions, if you actually spent on whatever C-SPAN or television network
Yeah.
and you actually watch not the highlight versions that make it to, YouTube or whatever, but you actually sit there and watch the
To
mundane
Newsmax.
bullcrap answers that
Yeah.
some of these old people ask. It is embarrassing. You're like, you are
Yeah.
wasting everyone's time at this point, because
No,
even the answer that he might give you won't help what we're here for.
it's not even that. If you ask a question in such a manner, and I feel like that's a sincere question, I'm starting to get concerned. Like, why do you hold this office? Shouldn't you be in a retirement home somewhere in Boca Raton,
Well, that's a
Florida? Like,
completely
why are you?
different question, right? About
Yeah,
term
I just.
limits and yada yada yadas. What the reality of it
But
is
this is not a political show. We talk about business here, big man.
my ass. It's all of it. Okay, you're
Oh,
talking business, you're talking politics. But
I
anyway,
know.
the point is that senator or that legislature, in my opinion, that representative or
Legislation.
that senator should have someone, shouldn't be asking that question. Someone that knows that technology should be asking that question.
And these people already don't do anything. So you're telling me they already have unlimited budgets. They're not going to hire some 22-year-old like comp sci major to explain this to them so they don't sound stupid.
They
That's
should absolutely. Well, I'm just saying it should change the
yeah.
way it is because it's
So
useless the way it is.
right. And so like that, I mean, idiots,
It's not gonna
right?
social media, to answer your initial question about
Yeah.
the balkanization of Facebook
Right.
or Twitter or any other social media platform. Not gonna happen. It's not
I
gonna. They
no.
can't prove that it is costing, negatively affecting
Well, when I
the
said
consumer.
balkanization, I didn't. What I didn't intend to mean was that the government's going to break them up. What I really was thinking in my head was not only is the government talking about breaking them up, people are exiting. I don't know if you've been over on the hell site known as Parlor. It's fascinating.
I have not yet, and I keep meaning to for that reason, right? For that reason of I, like you, am a student of the way people think, right? And it fascinates me when I come across someone that has a completely different view of the world than myself, right?
Well, okay, listen. I went on there, and I'm on MeWe. I'm on Minds,
I don't even,
Minds.
I don't even know what me, we, and mines is, but all right, go ahead.
Okay, so Minds is my favorite of the alt platforms.
Okay,
It is the strongest one. I really like the founder of it. He started with the intention of it being a secured, like,
okay,
whatever free platform. I like that. That's the one that works the best. I upload a lot of stuff to there. I use Steam it. I've been on the alt platforms before it was MAGA country. Okay. Um, but what I think is interesting is the perceived censorship, or when the to me censorship has a strict definition of like this government's telling you not what you can and can't say, but in a way these private corporations are acting as a surrogate to the state, and so it's interesting. And I think that they they suppressed. Twitter was suppressing links to a Hunter Biden story, which now the media is grabbing onto because they're trying to have the
sure.
first female president. This is the way they get there. What I think is interesting is the way to knock down a giant isn't to chop it up inch by inch. It's to just noose it by the neck and pull it down. And I think they are tying their own noose with like our first episode, because we talk about what does the president do when he leaves office. I might have made a joking comment about him not leaving office or something.
Right.
We have a link on our YouTube that we have not put there, that YouTube auto populates because it scrubs our content and says you're talking about something political, you're talking about the election. Here's the official. I mean, the fact that they believe that I'm going to buy into there's an official narrative about the election.
You have control, Danny. You have control of too many people's minds, and you
I have
could
control. Yeah,
absolutely, you know,
we are a show called Idiots versus Idiots where we repeatedly repeat the refrain that we are idiots and you are too.
yes, yes, I am 100%.
No, not you, the
Oh,
listener.
yes, you, the listener. Yes, you are too.
You,
Yes.
the viewer, and the notion that they're going to throw that on there, I think that does frustrate people, and that I think it might be the straw that broke the camel's back in the sense that people were already irritated when they took away the natural feed and they gave you this
Yeah.
dumb, it drives me insane to no end because I'll log in to Facebook and I'll see something, a post that I thought, oh, that's interesting, and then it it updates really quick because it's the first time I'm logging in, in a couple of days or whatever, and then I lose that. But the algorithm says you've already seen this, so I try to go to my friend's page, and it's showing me all the crap from 5 days I haven't seen. When there's one post I want to see, but I already saw it, so they won't let me see it again. I
I
mean,
have that
it's
same
horrifying.
frustration, but I
Yeah,
have a lot of respect for the longevity of companies that embrace change. And Facebook is definitely that.
yeah, and I think the other thing I was going to say is, um, remember MySpace? Like Tom didn't do any of this to us. He sold his company to News Corp and went and started that dumb shoe company where he gives away a
Hmm.
free shoe every time you buy one of his dumb looking shoes. That's a joke, and no one ever laughs at it. It's a completely different person. But those two things happened at the same time. People stopped
Right.
using MySpace and that company. But um, like if you just stop using Facebook, like everybody stopped using MySpace one day, its relevance will die.
Well, true,
Uh,
but again, you're talking about that's what I'm saying. You've
yeah,
created a juggernaut, and what Facebook did that MySpace didn't have the time to do is Facebook. The reason Facebook is free is because it is an advertising juggernaut. Now that would
it
also
is. Yeah.
die out instantly if people stopped using it, but they're not gonna, right?
Well, I mean, that's you say that, but the point is, if you used to run Google Ads, if you used to run, I mean, you still can, but the point is, you're not seeing click through like you were 10 years ago,
No, but because
right?
the market, because there's so many people using it now versus
It's
10 years
not
ago,
just,
and
it's
there's
not
still
just
it's
that,
even ingrained in our language. We call it Facebook official, right?
right? Right,
Like
right.
that is a
Well,
term.
we don't, but you
Well,
might because you're
you get what I'm saying. Anyway,
a
my
dinosaur.
point is, being from an idiot's perspective, is I don't think the antitrust thing's going to happen, and I don't see Facebook in the near future going anywhere. Regardless of all of this,
Uh-huh.
I think it's going to continue to aggregate this data, and it's
Right.
just going to become more and more of a juggernaut of just ad revenue because of the targeting, and
Yeah,
that's the real future. Is targeted
I,
advertising is not the future; it's actually the now.
it's the
Who
now.
who is your customer? How can I
Reach them.
market directly to that person, right? And
Right.
Facebook and Google are really the only two shows in town to do it.
Right. And I don't, and here's the thing. I wonder, I just think that I think it's coming to it's got to come to a close at some time, right? It can't be forever.
Everything dies, but forever. I mean, how long has Facebook really been popular and around? What,
Well, let me ask you this question. Do you remember this little company people thought had a problem, a similar issue called AOL?
But again, you take AOL for an example. They did not embrace change. They didn't embrace change. AOL,
Right.
much like Blockbuster, much like a lot of others, were versus a Google, for example.
Yeah, well,
How did
they
Google become Google? They embraced change and innovation. And I think these companies like Amazon started out selling books.
I know.
Books. That's it. And
Yeah.
now they're Amazon, right? And Jeff Bezos is the Elon Musk. How many companies fall under that umbrella because of the same reason? When
Yeah.
you now have these mega companies that aren't about one thing. They're not the Bell companies, right? They're not AT&T. They're not one thing. They're a million things, and they're
Right.
embracing change on top of it. I think that's going to be a whole lot more difficult to kill off than anything we've seen in the
I
past 50
disagree. I
years.
think the bigger it is, the easier it is to disrupt.
Ah,
Right? I think the bigger. No, here's why. I think the bigger it is, the easier it is to disrupt. And I think companies like Walmart have tried and they didn't succeed because they don't know how to disrupt yet. But I think it's coming. I think disruption is coming for all of them.
okay, disclaimer for everybody: when Danny says it's coming or it's gonna happen, 9 times out of the 10 it's not. Danny has a very what do you call it? Pessimistic look
No,
on
I don't.
life.
That's
He is an anarchist. He
that
believes
is
that it's
true.
all gonna fall apart soon. So
Yeah,
so
but I am an
just like
optimist. To call me a pessimist is unfair. I am generally speaking a wide-eyed, hopeful optimist. That's who I am as a person. I have a very dry and dark sense of humor, and that's where the two might get confused. But from an overall perspective,
my
okay,
ass. All right, topic
uh,
number 2 today, Danny. What is number 2?
streaming wars,
What? Streaming wars?
streaming wars.
Well, that's talk about something no one can get a handle on from day to day.
So here's the thing, if someone said, if I had to go out there and I had to buy an AMC subscription, right? If it was all standalone and you bought every set of channels that you wanted,
Sure.
$5 at a time, I would have never seen Mad Men or Breaking Bad. I mean, like the show would have had to have been in 4 seasons in, and everyone would have had to been like, "Oh, this is great." Most of us stumbled upon it because it was just there, right?
Right.
And so I think that's part of what I see is like now discovery of new things is going to be a little harder. And I know HBO has gone the route of like they will offer a show for free, like for 4 episodes or something, or they're up
Mm-hmm.
like the show Billions on Showtime. They used to put out episodes for free on YouTube so that you can watch it because they know it's hard to get you over to their platform to watch their show. And if you're already paying for HBO, you're like HBO Max, and I think I have HBO Max. I got Hulu, I got Netflix. I don't know about you, but at some point in time, I think I've just finished, right? I'm on the Korean part of Netflix now. I don't know what the heck is going on,
Well, but see, I don't
but
look here. Here's the deal. I pay for everything, right? My wife still makes me have cable and every channel that they
really?
have, and then on top of it, I have all of these apps that I have to have: Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus, and
Right.
so I basically pay for everything. And the thing about streaming wars that I find interesting from a business standpoint is I have no idea in the current world of streaming channels. It is
Right.
so easy to develop one and even get content into one because
Yep.
so much of the content overlaps from one to another that there's no sign in the future of what is going to happen. How's it going to work out? Is Amazon, like, you can go on Amazon right now and there's a bunch of these apps that you can get access through your Amazon Prime account, right? The
Right.
deals that they've made with these companies to, I'm sure, share something with them,
I know,
right?
but can I tell you why those are a bummer? Is because like um, my sister and her husband and my friends, we all kind of pool our different accounts, right? We swap passwords across
Don't
different
say that in
things.
the public space. You're not supposed to do that. That is against the licensing agreement
Uh
that you
huh.
have.
Yeah. Okay.
So I
But
don't
that's
share
why.
mine with anyone, Danny,
Uh huh. But
ever.
that's why they give you profiles, right? Because they're expecting everyone to do
No,
that.
what's scary is the fact that a profile one day on my Amazon Prime account just
Yeah.
popped up and separated itself one day and said Robert, Jennifer, and children or something like that. Like, I didn't set that profile up. It just said, "Hey, this is the." That's what's scary.
That's
But
freaky.
my point is there's just so many. Like, it
Yeah.
seems like
No.
every other day I'm coming across a new TV movie app,
Streaming platform.
and
Yeah.
then very quickly thereafter they have unique content, right? CBS All Access they're basically every new Star Trek thing, which I'm a Trekkie, a new Trek fan, right? If I want to watch all the new Star Trek material, it's only on CBS All Access. It's not on CBS.
Folks, if you couldn't tell by his neck beard,
Hey,
that big man is a Trekkie. Oh my goodness.
I'm not going to say
Uh
the words I want to say right now, but Picard, Star Trek Discovery, right? All the new stuff.
I
I
don't know
have
what
to
you're saying
pay
because
the
I'm a normal
$6 a
person.
month, right?
Yeah.
Hey, if there was a Fast and Furious network, you'd be all over it, all right? So,
Done. Sold already.
yeah,
Purchased.
Vin
Yeah.
Diesel. I learned actually in 2020 that the reason he's actually called Vin Diesel is his name is vehicle identification
Identification number diesel.
number.
Yeah.
Diesel, which is why he got for Fast and Furious 1. It's why they picked him, right?
Okay.
But
Well,
anyway,
people, this is Idiots versus Idiots, where Big Man, who's 1 million years old, talks about memes to you that we all already saw.
hey, I didn't know it. All right, I'm just saying things
Um,
you didn't know until today.
CBS All Access is rebranding as, because Viacom CBS are this huge conglomerate of content. They're rebranding CBS All Access as Paramount Plus, um, which is fascinating. So, like, I just switched from Dish to YouTube TV, and I realized I was like, I basically watched 4 shows that's on YouTube TV,
Mm-hmm.
and the election's over, and I didn't even care about the election when it was happening. So I don't really need any of these channels. And so I was like, this is $70 because like it was, I think, $50 or 45 when I got it, and it quickly became $65. But the nice thing is, Dish Network, it was like pulling teeth to cancel. Nice thing about YouTube TV is you just click, 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 done. It's canceled. It's gone. So here's the thing about streaming wars that I think is interesting. I think there's so many platforms. At some point in time, the concept that what happened with Netflix was an aggregator of content. They
Right.
went out, they bought licensing to content in certain regions, and they put the content on their platform. At some point in time, Netflix had so much money, they started making their own content. And that's when
Mm-hmm.
the content creators and the original distribution platforms, such as CBS and Disney and all that, said, well, if they're going to make content, why don't we become our own platform? And so they decided to disrupt the content creation game because I'm not saying I'm an expert or anything, but to make an amazing looking TV show right now
Mm-hmm.
cost a fraction of what it used to cost a million years ago, right? Like
Well,
when I
of
say a
course.
fraction, I mean you and I can run out to Sam's Club and Costco right now and buy up a bunch of 4K digital SLRs, and we can go find some kid from ACC or anywhere, and like we can go online and find a guy to edit our stuff down.
Absolutely.
And but we you need a quality story editor. What are you talking about? 50, 60,000 bucks, and then a decent editing. I mean, for like $300,000, we could become a production house. Whereas
Well, even
when
cheaper
Netflix,
than that, if you talk about like Netflix, for example, that has a person that they can grab a comedian
yeah,
Gabriel Iglesias and go, hey, or Adam Sandler, and make movies because they already own the
yeah,
equipment, they already own all this crap,
they already,
and then
yeah,
they just go, hey, you just tell us, man, tell us the storyline, tell us where you want it to
yeah,
be, and we're just gonna do it, and it's super inexpensive, which is why every big name comedian, hell, the Big Show from WWF or WWE, the wrestler called the Big Show, this
yeah,
very large wrestler guy, has his
uh-huh,
own Netflix comedy show about him being a dad of like 3 girls or something like that.
huh,
It's pretty awful, but I'm sure it cost them next to nothing to make. It's a
right,
house set with a previous wrestler and a couple of, you know what I mean, his
yeah.
daughters, and they wrote a little comedy, and it cost them. So if it flops, it's not a huge like versus CBS or ABC or
Totally. It's not the same. The barrier to entry is lowered and the risk is so much lower
yes.
that, and the other thing too is like we live in a world where it's like um especially in 2020, I've hit the end of content, man. Like I've watched a lot of stuff already, like there's not much left. And so now like especially too, like they're bringing this international content. There was a TV show on Netflix called Indian Matchmaking. I am of, I guess, some sort of Indian or something, and I watched it with my mom. It was a funny show to watch, and the interesting part of that show was we watched the show. And my mom goes, "Now I see why you don't like dating Indian women." because she's like, now I get it.
See, okay, now this is the one thing that I'll say about the streaming wars content creation is there seems to be a wide gap in the quality of the programming. Like
Sure.
I was just talking about that Big Show TV series. Watched a couple of episodes of it to give it a shot. It was not high quality comedy. It was very formulaic. It was not
Yeah.
great. But then you turn around and somebody else does a very similar show and it is amazing. And so there
Right.
seems to be this gap in they'll make one show and it is awesome. And then they'll make another show. And people are very forgiving with the online created content like
Totally.
Netflix or
Yeah.
whatever.
That's
Like if for I'll give you a great example. What's the new Hemsworth movie that came out on Netflix not too long ago where he went and saved the
ugh.
kid?
It was awful.
Okay, I enjoyed it. The point is you could tell by watching that there were portions of that movie that almost looked like mega movie, right?
Yeah.
Action scenes.
Totally.
But the movie overall obviously didn't have the depth of a gone to movie. It was a
Yeah. Going to the
very
theater.
low, thin storyline or whatever. But so people loved it in that it was made for Netflix. For a
Right.
Netflix movie, it was great. It was very cinematic. It had Chris Hemsworth in it, right? It had some
Yeah.
other actors in it or whatever. So they were very forgiving. Where if that had came out at AMC and people were paying $12 and $15 a ticket to see it, people would
Yeah.
have been bitching the whole time that it
Totally.
was an awful movie and that it had no storyline or whatever. So there's definitely a lower bar, but they can sometimes come out with some great stuff.
So speaking of AMC, the theaters have been getting whooped this year
Oh yeah.
by a pandemic. Like they were getting whooped already, but like the pandemic didn't help. And what's interesting is now HBO Max, I think it's HBO Max, maybe one of the other ones as well, is saying that they in 2021 they are releasing all of their films
Yes.
to their platform and to theaters on the same day.
Yes. HBO
Legendary
Max.
Legendary Pictures,
Uh-huh.
I think they said they might sue because of that, because it's
They
going to pump
can't.
up.
They
What's
can't.
that?
They don't own the
I know.
content. They never have.
Well,
They can
yeah, they
try.
produce
I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
people can sue for anything.
Right.
But they don't own the content. They license it just like anybody else. And this is exactly what you and I were talking about on the first part of this podcast with Facebook and everything else, is the fact that if you don't embrace change, you die. Movie theaters
Right.
have relied on things working the same way since
Right.
their creation, right? A
Well,
movie comes out,
I,
you go ahead.
well, I was just saying, like the genesis of our channel and us working together on content was us doing movie reviews, right?
Right.
And there was a handful of theaters we would go to, but we mostly frequented the ones that catered to a more, what I would call more of an experience, right? They have food, they have all this other stuff.
Sure.
And I think that, like when they create what I would call a date night experience type thing, even though, it wasn't a date, but I'm just saying we're seeing other people now. But I'm just saying, it's a joke. But that I think that still has a place in the market, sans pandemic. But I don't know that the traditional like AMC or Regal, both of which are getting just their butts handed to them today in the market, not just
Cinemark.
today, but they're done.
Well, I think you change or you die, and I think that's correct in that I don't know, and they don't know how they survive. You say sans pandemic. I don't know how they get people back in to what it was. I mean, I think it lasted as long as it could. Why did people go to the movies? It was an experience, right? You take your kids, your girlfriend, your wife, or whatever. You go to the movies, you watch a movie, right? That's dinner and a movie is kind of your first date go-to for everybody,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
But I think the pandemic, like a lot of things, changes that whole thing, right? When did people, even after all this stuff, become comfortable going back into a full movie theater, sitting
I'm
next
down
to
to
someone,
go right now.
sitting next to someone you don't know.
Well,
in a-
that's not. I'm not
in a
doing that.
full
I wasn't,
movie
but I
theater.
wasn't. I wasn't doing that before the pandemic because I don't want to sit next to these grody,
I'm a
people.
large man, but
Yeah.
look, you are right, and I think I think they are trying to, and as they should in business. I'm a capitalist. That these apps, hey, shush. All right, I'm a true hard, die-hard capitalist. Anyway, the
Right.
point is, they are trying to
You
take
can make me
advantage.
say your pronouns, but you can't take away my air quotes.
They are taking advantage of the pandemic in that way. Movie
Yeah.
theaters are dying. Why should I
Right.
pay them? They're not open anyway. They push
Right.
back premieres as long as they can push them back. I can't
Yeah.
even count how many movies have been pushed to 2021 that were supposed to be released this year.
When they announced Fast and Furious was 9 was not coming out this year, and they didn't even push it at the beginning of the pandemic. They just said we're screwing off and we're doing this next year. I had a legitimate panic attack because that's one of the things I look forward to every other year.
Well, of course you do. And but a lot of movies,
Even
right?
years, even years, so 2018, 2020, they're Fast and Furious years. Odd years or not. Odd years, you're just building up excitement to the next Fast and Furious film. And the fact that these aren't coming out as planned and as promised, it's horrifying to me.
Well, and I think, look, here's what Disney did, and through Disney Plus, is they got all these people to sign up for Disney Plus, and then they released what was it, the live action version of Mulan, which I still
Yeah.
haven't seen, by the way. The
I'm
live
not
action,
gonna
and they
bother.
made people pay for it.
Oh, they did.
Yes. So they
Okay.
released Mulan, right? There was a couple of other ones that they, you know what I mean, that they released.
Because they
and
are
just-
saying with HBO Max, what they're saying is you can go because they're doing Wonder Woman 1984, which I'm so excited to see.
Oh yeah.
Um, they're saying that if you do the free 7-day subscription, you will not have access to all of the content. So I think what's going to happen is here's what I think. I think like with any new vertical in the marketplace, it goes wide and crazy, and there's all this other stuff. Like I know, like when apps were a thing, everybody had a stupid app, right? But at some point in time, everyone chills out. Nobody cares. You have an app. I'm not going to go download your dumb thing unless I need it. I download the Walgreens app. I take a picture of the barcode of my prescription drugs. They fill it, and I delete the app. I don't have the stupid thing on my phone, right?
Right.
So I think the same thing will eventually apply to streaming platforms where some company's going to go, hey, pay us $60 a month and you can watch 10 episodes or 10 things from here, 5 things from here, and we'll just all end up with cable all over again.
Well,
right?
and that's what it is. That's where it's going to move, right? Whether it's Amazon or whether it's Netflix or whatever else, they're going to end up being an aggregation of a bunch of these different channels, right? That are just going to pay them for access to their channel, and you're going to pay that one company for access to 500 of them or whatever it may end up being, and just like current cable, you're not going to end up watching most of them. You're going to have your 12 favorite channels that you watch, and the rest of them are going to be garbage most of the time, but every now and then you're going to put in a search and that random one has the show that you want to see or movie you want to see, and that's what it's going to be. But what Disney Plus did, they took a chance and it paid off, is they proved that people will not only pay to have access like Netflix, right, and Disney Plus and whatever, but they'll pay to watch something first. And I think Mulan was, I think it was $30, $29.99 to watch it. Now eventually December 4th it came out on Disney Plus where you didn't have to pay to watch it. But for the first month it was out, if you wanted to watch it, you had to pay the, you know what I mean, at the movie
and,
$30.
I know somebody who paid to there's a show, I think it comes out on TNT, and it uploads to Amazon Prime, and we were watching it at the same time, and he's like, dude, have you seen season 4? It's called Animal Kingdom. I was like, no. He's like, why, dude? It's like $20. I was like, yeah, but I pay for Amazon Prime. It's going to be there in 2 months, and I already paid for it.
Yeah.
So I just waited. I waited it out, and
but that's you. They prove that people will pay for that content, and not a few, but a lot.
Yeah.
So I think Disney tried something, and Disney does. It's that kind of company that tried something, proved that it worked, and now you'll see it more often because it did work.
Right. So can I now tell you about my absolute, hands down, favorite scam of the year?
What's that?
Is it time?
It is time.
I want to tell you about Nikola Motors, man. I think I sent you a video. We're going to try to link this in the description.
Okay.
From Donut Media. If you guys haven't seen this, it's this electric car company.
Donut Media. like I'm supposed to buy into anything. A company called Donut Media. But
Yeah,
go
like
ahead. Go
donut,
ahead. Yeah.
like you go in the parking lot and do donuts, like when you
I
were a
know.
kid.
I get it. Go ahead.
You and your brothers used to go crank the front of your Model
And
T
it
up,
wasn't
and
in a parking lot. It was in a field. All right. So
that's correct.
kiss my ass. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is a great. And listen, I'm a guy who loves a good scam. Why? Like every red-blooded American man, we want to go out and do Ocean's 11 with our friends. That is, that is a Dane Cook uh, bit.
What is it?
Yeah. Now Nikola Motors says it's and it lives in this time where there's all of this freshly printed money from the Federal Reserve's printing, which creates these extremely cheap lines of credit. So big venture cap firms go out there and they draw on these massive multi-million dollar lines of credit. And they make these ridiculous investments. And within the real estate space, even they get loans that are called non-recourse, which they get to invest the money. And if it doesn't work out, they just go, well, have a nice day. And they just drop this on the government, on the people. But when it comes to private, investment, that's not the case. There's recourse, but they got money
Yes.
from General Motors, El General in español.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so let me tell you something. Well, at first, General Motors was going to invest this massive amount of money. They were going to give them a huge boost. They were going to give them motors and all this other stuff. The guy who started, I think his name is Trevor Milton. Trevor Milton created Nikola Motors, and his brother was the head of hydrogen propulsion. His
Right.
brother's job right before this was not at NASA, was not at Tesla, and it certainly was not for another car company. He was a drywaller. Nothing wrong with drywalling, okay? But just saying, don't know how that translates, all right? I don't know if those skills translate. Here's why I like it. This company basically puts out Photoshop pictures of a truck, and they think they made $50,000 in 2019 or something, and they raised enough money in stock in IPO to be a multi-billion-dollar company. I think they're
Yeah.
worth something like $32 billion,
Yes.
and they have nothing. It's vaporware.
Dude, and again, the pictures and then the video, the downhill video of the truck, where then it's come out. Now, okay, look, first let me step back. I will never understand how a company like General Motors or the American government, for example, will decide to spend millions and in some cases billions of dollars with doing no fact checking at all. No background checking. How does a company, a multi-billion-dollar company like General Motors, not know that that is fake? Now, you and me watching it on YouTube and can go, oh my God, look at that. That's a cold fusion semi-truck, right? Rolling down here or whatever. I'm sitting here. All I know is what I'm seeing on that screen, right?
Yeah, but
That's
even
it.
I looked at it. It was like fake.
Okay, but you sit there and you watch it, and then you go, okay. Then General Motors invests in it, which gives the people that's it says, okay, this must be a real thing, right? It gets us
And there
confidence.
lies the scam. My friend. Now, the same thing happened to Rivian. I don't know if you're familiar with Rivian. Ford initially said, we're going to make this huge investment into Rivian. Rivian has not been proven to be some sort of vaporware scam yet, but I still don't think you can go buy a Rivian truck. They don't exist anywhere. Bollinger, which is a dumb name and a dumb design.
Another one.
You can at least go buy, there's at least a prototype that you can watch somebody drive on Jay Leno's garage. Like, there's at least something there, right?
Yeah.
What's interesting is, I think I wouldn't use a phrase like pump and dump. This is just my opinion. I'm an idiot. No one should listen to anything I'm saying. I think it's the rub here is that the company goes, okay, we can raise a bunch of stock. For instance, I'll give you an example. When Bill Gates gave a huge sum of money to Mark Zuckerberg for Facebook, and he said, I just want 1%. It seems stupid to you and me, or to the other idiots that exist on this planet, but to him, what he's doing is he's making a strategic long-term investment, and what he's doing is he's signaling to the marketplace, I'm a billionaire. I'm investing into this thing, and I'm saying I gave him $10 million. I think it's only worth 1%. That means it's $100 million company. It's never shown a single revenue. It's never sold a daggum thing, but it's $100 million company.
Right.
And so I think this engages in what I call the fabrication of non-real or liquid value, which just means it's worth a crap load of money in your brain. And that's the extent to which you can extract the value, because real value is when somebody pulls money out of their wallet and buys a thing from you, right? And insofar as you can separate somebody from their hard-earned money, that's when you have value. And the reality is, if you can take something public with fabricated theoretical value, non-liquid reality, like just throw all the adjectives at it, man. If you can do that, you create money out of thin air.
Well,
You
look, that's the Warren Buffett effect, right? Warren
Yeah,
Buffett has the same thing when he goes, well, I
yeah,
just invested $1 million in this company. That company knows that it's going to turn around and get $300 million from a whole bunch of other people, right?
Or if
So,
Bill Ackman is out there shorting your stock like Herbalife, well, that didn't work
exactly.
out for Bill Ackman, but still.
So you get this confidence, this perceived confidence. But look, you can argue that we already live in a world of money and wealth is in thin air, right? I mean, when they say
Yeah,
something like the stock
completely.
market hit a new high, for most people, 7 out of 10 people, that is irrelevant. 7 out of 10 people don't own
Totally.
stock in anything, right? What it,
Well, and
it's the
also
30%, the 10%, the 20%, and the 30% that own stock in those companies that it makes any difference to whatsoever in
right.
wealth,
And
right?
also, the government printed $6 trillion in 4 years. So, yeah, where do you think that money ends up? It ends up in market liquidity.
Well,
But I
but
just think, and
yeah,
listen,
I don't know how a company. That's all I'm saying. Is I don't know how a
yeah,
company like you said Rivian, but in this case we're talking about
Nikola
Nikola
Motors,
is how they get to that extent where a company like General Motors, somebody
and
at General Motors had to sign off of that, and it just wasn't one person. It was
right,
several people. Did they literally just walk into a conference room and show that YouTube video where here's our truck driving down the hill, when it
yeah,
was literally, we now know that a semi tow
towed it.
truck towed it up the hill, and the
Yep.
reason it's coming down the hill is because it's not even running, it's rolling down the
Well,
hill.
if I was him, I would have just been like, we're using a new form of technology. It's called gravity motion or something like that.
So that it was
Because it
reasonably
ain't
true. It
electricity,
was it
pal. It
was
ain't.
just another word of truth.
Right. So
But
like I just the reason I love this story is, GM is sized down their investment, but now they've kicked Trevor Milton to the curb. A former GM executive has taken over as CEO, and they've significantly and drastically altered the future of what Nikola Motors is going to be. And I think this is on GM's part, it's brilliant, because now they're playing in a sandbox with somebody else's money, right?
sure, but I was surprised at it because they also had Hummer EV came out, right?
Yeah.
They've invested a lot of money in the Hummer EV truck, and
Yep.
that's coming.
So
Regardless
yeah,
of what
it's coming.
happens with Nikola and everything else,
Right.
that's coming, right?
But
Hummer
so
EV
here's what
is
I
done.
think. So they've significantly uh, stripped down uh, the business. They're not making the Badger truck anymore, right? So
Right.
the initial business was to make a pickup, or part of the initial business. So Nikola is going to be like entirely focused on making semis, hydrogen and electric hybrid semis, which I think that I don't know about the technology, but I definitely think that GM is happy to be playing in the space with somebody else's money, that was raised with somebody else's IPO, with somebody else's um, brand. Which I think the brand is the dumbest thing. Like, Nicola's dumb, the logo's dumb, the whole everything about it is stupid.
But it's money. It doesn't matter if it's stupid.
That's what
It's
I'm saying, and
it's
that's why I
money,
love the story. I
right?
love the story because Trevor Milton had the big brass balls to go out
Mm-hmm.
there and
Mm-hmm.
perpetuate a scheme of this nature. And let me tell you something, man. If I have one regret in my life, it's that I wasn't out there hoodwinking more people, right?
He doesn't mean that from a legal standpoint.
Of
He is
course
not
not. Of course
responsible
not. I'm
for
saying
any of his actions. But yeah,
This is
no,
hypothetical. I'm saying
dude.
hypothetically.
I mean, look. I mean, can you sit there and go back? If I had one, I would make more money from. Yeah, sure. Everybody can say that. Would have everybody wished they could go back in time and give Mark Zuckerberg or you know what I mean, or Bill Gates or anybody part of their initial
Dude,
capital?
my Bitcoin, which I don't own any cryptocurrency and never had, but if I knew what Bitcoin was when it was 40 cents to pick up a Bitcoin, right? And I was like, this is going to be the future. And then I didn't. And
Which brings us to our final story of the day.
which brings us to our final story of the day. Facebook last year
Uh
made a
huh.
massive, huge announcement that it was getting into the cryptocurrency space and it was sponsoring at that time, which I forget what it was sponsoring a cryptocurrency called Libra.
Okay.
And the first controversy and they had all of these corporations and banks signed on to endorse, and it was the Libra Foundation. So I think it was set up as kind of like a Linux type, um, like open source kind of positioning. Because listen, I think the one thing people have in Facebook is a lack of trust. So yeah, we're just going to start doing financial transactions on your scam platform that is
Okay,
scraping
you
my
have a
data.
lack of trust in Facebook. There are
Uh-huh.
millions and millions of people that
I
show every day that they have 100% full faith in Facebook. But go ahead.
True. No, so and the by the end of the year, the project had effectively flopped.
Of course, it's cryptocurrency.
Well, don't okay. I don't like how you said that. All right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Cryptocurrency, and look, all currency. And here's my issue with cryptocurrency is it's no different. It's no different than any other currency. It's
Well,
it's
it
it's a
is.
scam, right?
It is not a scam.
Currency
You're a
creates.
scam.
No, well,
Your
that's
hairline
partially
is a
true,
scam.
depending on who you speak to, especially if you speak to my wife or children. The point is it's all a scam. We all believe the dollar, the American dollar, has value because you and I give it value. In that,
Right.
if I hand you a $1 bill, you agree that that's $1, right? It's all that.
It's not even
Cryptocurrency
that
is
I agree
no
that
different than a
it's not that
stock. Okay.
it is not a stock. But let me say this. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole with you, but
I'm telling
here's
you,
what
it is not the future. It is the past. It's a
you're the past.
regurgitation of
You're
an
the past.
ancient idea
You're
that is
dead.
getting people
You're not
to
even
go
alive.
into it, that is only pushed up by people that are just like you, which is great as long as there's enough of them. And when there's not, it goes to zero.
Well, here's the thing, right? There's enough of us out there that have cranked Bitcoin. You can buy a slightly used certified Honda Civic, or you can get a string of letters and numbers. Okay. And that's what cryptocurrency is. You can get a thing that you drive around in.
Do you realize cryptocurrency is it's literally a term they made up
Yeah.
out of thin air to make it sound like it's something unique? It is
You're
not. It is a pink sheet stock with nothing behind it. It
okay.
is nothing. The OTC pink sheet stock market is cryptocurrency. It's been around for 50 years.
Okay.
It's no
I'm not
different
here.
than the Wolf of Wall Street going, hey, I've got this great Canadian company that makes blah, 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 and it's really
Right.
two guys out of their garage, and they're going to
Okay.
be the next big thing.
Fine. Listen, Peter Schiff, who's an economist and a podcast guy who I really enjoy, he agrees with you, and he's wrong. But I'm not here to talk about that they're wrong, right? How you're wrong and how you're stupid.
All right,
And
yeah, I'm an idiot. Go ahead.
here's what I'm here to discuss. They are still trying. I give them credit. Facebook is now rebranding. The first hiccup that they had was that the logo for Libra was a knockoff of a company called Current. And you would think these people would stop going to Shutterstock and buying a logo. You're a billion-dollar corporation, man. You got a bunch of nerds sitting downstairs, okay? Go to one of these nerds, go to the intern. The interns at Facebook can make better logos than the first one that they came out with. And
this
now they're
goes back to
rebrand.
exactly what we were talking about in the Nikola story. Is
Right.
because the person that decided on that logo wasn't a logo guy, wasn't a
Yep.
logo lady. It was a guy, right?
Yeah.
Probably an intern that already had worked 80 hours that week and didn't have anything else to do. And their
Right.
boss looked at it and said, "Sure." Right?
Right.
And went on about their business. And
So
eventually they'll get around to changing it to something appropriate. But until it's a thing, it
yeah.
won't.
Well, so they redid the logo, and now they've rebranded the name. So instead of being Libra, so there was a Libra and Libra wallet, I believe, and now it's the Novi or whatever, Novi
Okay.
something wallet, and the Diem. It's called Diem like per diem.
Right.
Uh, it, that's what the currency is called. I think it's fascinating, but here's what I think. I think the entire now let's just for a moment, big man, let's just go into a universe where you think cryptocurrency is good or real. Can we do that for just a moment?
I can imagine anything you would like, sir.
Can you not be a dirty, gross, obscene pessimist for just 2 minutes so we can have a fun show? Okay.
Sure, sure.
I just don't think that the concept of what cryptocurrency is digital currency, and they were going to have these partnerships with huge banks and all this stuff, and ultimately these are the dinosaurs, and cryptocurrency in many ways is a comet. It's a meteor. It's coming to kill them. So they were trying to be like on our first story we were talking about. They were trying to adapt to change and stuff like that. And they all realized that it was just a bigger uphill battle than what was worth, and they decided to drop out of the project. So after the controversy with the logo, people dropped out. The huge corporations dropped out of the project, and now Facebook is still. But here's what I give them credit for: they're still scrambling to make it work.
Well,
You know,
look, crypto as an entirety, and this is kind of what I was alluding to at the beginning of my rant. Is anything, even as something as pretend as cryptocurrency, can be real if people invest in it, right? So your biggest one example being Bitcoin, and there for a
right?
while it was Litecoin, right? And these other ones. Look, there
It
was
wasn't
there
like
was
those are two separate things, dude.
I
Litecoin
no,
and
I
Bitcoin
know
are two
they're two
separate things.
separate things, but they're both cryptocurrencies. Is my
Oh
point.
yeah, correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
and there was even one created by a redditor called Garlic Coin
yeah,
that for
yeah.
a while had value because people thought it was dumb and stupid, and enough people spent real
Yeah,
money
so
on
did
it,
Crypto Kitties and
and
Dogecoin, but I
exactly,
didn't.
and
Yeah,
made it a thing. And if
right.
people look, you could argue that your what is it for Fortnite V-Bucks, right?
Hmm.
And Robux, right?
Right.
Roblox money and stuff like that. These are forms of, in my opinion, kind of like in the same vein of cryptocurrency. Instead of getting you to use real money, they've gotten you and enough people to invest in something that's pretend. And as long as there's enough people out there that believe in it, whether it's through videos that you can YouTube where this is the future or
Right.
whatever the grift is, you can get enough people. It is real right now.
Right.
One Bitcoin is what, $13,000-$14,000 right now.
It's like I think they're trading at like 6, 17, 18,
Okay, so $17,000, right, is one Bitcoin right now. And
18,000.
And the argument is there's a finite number, right? That's always been
Right.
the argument. There's a finite
Right.
number of coins, which is why they have value. But guess what? Like I said earlier, it's just like a pink sheet stock. A pink sheet stock has a finite number of shares that can be
Well,
sold on any given day, right? There's
yeah.
only so many, and as long as there's people to buy them, it has value. The problem with, in my opinion, cryptocurrency, regardless of whether it's Bitcoin, Libra, Diem, any of them, Litecoin, Garlic Coin, the problem is, just like that pink sheet, when no one sees value in it anymore, enough people get out and no longer
Right.
see value, it drops to zero,
It goes to nothing. I don't
right?
disagree with what you're saying, but
Unlike the dollar, right? The
well
American
the
dollar, the money we actually use in our bank every day, it's still a dollar. It's
yeah.
protected by the government. It will never
Right.
go to zero unless the government doesn't exist anymore, which has
Well,
happened in other European countries and stuff like that before, right?
yeah.
That's
So
my point.
here's what I will say. I just think that here's what it proves. I'm not going to argue with you because you're an idiot when it comes to this.
Very true.
Dum dum, big dum dum. Um, what I think is interesting is it proves to me that the argument for what the crypto market, the crypto pirates, right? The people like myself who believe in the cryptocurrency industry, or that it is the future of revolutionizing. At the end of the day, it's a transfer of value. Okay, I have done business with people in Amazon gift certificates. That's money,
Absolutely.
friend. That's money.
One hundred percent.
If I can take that code, it's a random string of code, and I can turn it into a thing. That's all that is. So,
And that's where
since
I'm with you. Whether it's
in my
cryptocurrency or
yep,
anything else, if someone will give you right now $18,000 for Bitcoin and you're wanting
yeah,
to sell it and you bought that Bitcoin for $1,000 way back when or whatever, good
yep,
for you. I am not
totally.
denying anyone
So here's what
making
I'm
money,
saying, right?
real or not.
Here's what I'm saying. What it does for the crypto pirates is it proves to me that the crypto market is rejecting big business because they see this as, we're not doing the bankster situation that exists right now. We're not buying into it. But what I do think is interesting is it takes a company like Facebook to engage it, or to create because if you know anything about cryptocurrency, especially at its genesis, which is where I still think we're in its genesis, is it's not easy to move around with. It's not easy to get. It's not easy to use. But the minute it becomes like Apple Pay, which, hey, I'm just going to throw something out there. It's all ones and zeros on a computer somewhere.
Right, and
Okay.
that's when it will become quote
Jerome
unquote
Powell,
mainstream and real, right? You
Jerome
cannot buy a
Powell,
house in America right now using
you can buy a
cryptocurrency.
car.
You can only buy a car in a certain way,
Right.
and it has to be a dealership that's willing to go around that
Yeah, to
way.
take it.
But
Yeah.
that's my point. It
So
is not a mainstream process
not yet,
to be able to use
but
cryptocurrency to buy common items, especially large common items.
so
And until that becomes the case, it's a
right.
novelty.
So let me just say this. It takes a company like Facebook, because my mom has Facebook and she knows how to use it,
Sure.
right? But let me just, I was going to say something before that. Jerome Powell, the sitting chairman of the Federal Reserve,
Mm-hmm.
the the bank that holds and creates all of the U.S. currency,
Sure.
was asked recently in a 60 Minutes interview, or earlier this year, how did you guys create the money? You guys physically printed money for the stimulus and those things. He goes, well, we printed it digitally.
Yes.
What does that mean? Okay,
You know what that means. It's the same as
I know what that
anything
means, but
else.
I'm just saying, you can call it fake all you want. It's no more real or no faker than the U.S. government saying our money is backed by the full faith and credit of the empire, and
That's exactly what it's saying. And
that's what I'm saying.
cryptocurrency is backed by nothing. That's the
Well,
difference. The
no,
United States
cryptocurrency
government
is
backs up the dollar,
right.
that fake money that they digitally created for the stimulus, the 2 point or the whatever billion
Couple
dollars
$1
or
trillion.
$1 trillion stimulus it was. That was backed by the
Okay.
United States government,
So
where cryptocurrency is backed by its so-called investors, which are nobody. It is backed
what
by
I'm getting
no
at
one.
though is, here's what I'm saying. What I'm getting at is, we are already in a place where the average person does not have cash in their pocket. We are in a
Correct.
place where I know people who, they walk out of their house with their cell phone, and their cell phone has their Apple credit card, and they just tap their Apple credit card on a machine. We're not far away from a company like, and that's why I give credit to Facebook for saying, yeah, we're going to jump into the cryptocurrency space, because they are going to disrupt themselves. And I give Zuckerstads the credit for having the foresight to go, we are going to get disrupted, right? People are
It's
going to move away from our platform, but if we become MasterCard, right?
right. But again, they're jumping on something that they. I think you have a big company trying a novelty thing to try and make
Novelty.
money at it.
Novelty.
And if it works, great. If it doesn't, no harm done. Right?
Right. So
There's
I think
very
that's,
little risk to Facebook, and
of
it's a
course.
write off if it doesn't work. right?
And well, technically, the foundation, the Diem Foundation, is separate. It's a separate entity from
It
Facebook.
doesn't, it all under the same
I know
umbrella,
it's all the
right?
same thing.
So it's still a write-off if it doesn't work.
Totally.
And if they make some money in the process, this is what people and the average person doesn't always get about big business, especially the tie-in between big business and small business. If I am Facebook and I create Diem as a company, right? And I could use that company because I can just shovel money into it to
Yep.
advertise it, to do different things with it. I don't need it to succeed like you and I think succeed. I can have that company, if I spent $100 million on it, make $500 million over the next 3 years and still close it because it wasn't a success, but I still made $500,000 in profit from that.
Billion, you mean? Yeah.
Right? So that's not even a success to Facebook,
Right, that's it.
where
Right.
it would be a success to a small company, right? So they think differently on investments. They think, can I make $1, right,
Right.
from this, doing this? Do I have a chance of making $1? Do I have a chance of making $1 billion? And then
Right.
I'm going to test the theory and go on from there.
Well, and that's what Google is famous for doing is they'll put out a product and like this doesn't work, we're changing it. Right?
Well,
We're-
and good
we're
for them
merging
for
this
doing
into that.
That's why
What's
I
that?
said earlier in this podcast, I have a lot of respect for companies that embrace
Yeah.
change. They look at a decision they've made. This is a big Gary Vaynerchuk thing, right? Is the ability to make a decision and learn from it and change directions if
Totally.
you need to, right?
Totally.
So I have a lot of respect for that. But I still think, just to piss you off at the end there, still think that cryptocurrency is bullshit and worthless, but not
Totally.
that you yourself are. You are more of an idiot than that. And I love you for it.
This coming from a neckbeard Trekkie. I'm
Why
really
does this always
concerned about
come
your
back
thoughts.
to the neck beard? Why you gotta give? Okay, you can call me a fat man, but coming back to the neck beard just seems mean. Okay, you know what? You are something worse than an idiot. I'll figure it out between now and next time. But,
Alrighty.
that's the way it is. Do you have anything else for us, Danny, or is that just all of our?
That's all I
gadgets?
had, man.
That's it. Well,
That was 4 quality pieces of content, like
That-
4 quality stories there, man. The
that
hell
was
else
4
do you
quality
want?
stories. That
Yeah.
was 4 quality stories. Say goodbye, Danny. I appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all next time.
All right. Well, peace be with all of you.
What an idiot.